All right, and we are live yet again, episode 10 of Above Spirituality. I'm out here with my boy David Prorok. He is a creative technologist and working with like modern technology to like sort of bring that together with like the ancient wisdom and creating something wholly new. And that's what we're here to talk about. Did I introduce you properly?
Yeah, that was great. I'm a creative technologist combining advanced technologies and ancient wisdom to serve humanity.
Thank you. All right. Well, we were really happy to have you a couple weeks ago, although due to, I want to say unfortunate stuff, and to my human self, that was unfortunate. I felt terrible. But, they say divinity has no accidents. So we were talking about meditation and transformation, but, and I know that's something really important to you, yet, whenever we talk outside of this, when we meet for ecstatic dance or, just like the cool stuff you be sending me, it's usually centered around a lot of your work with AI. Mm-hmm. And so I really think the divine is just saying, okay, we got to talk about that. So today I'm really interested to pick your brain, to pick your soul. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more fitting on the combination of AI and spirituality. This is a topic kind of interesting to me because, we did do an episode on that. Shout out Alexander and also shout out Shruti, shout out Nils, got to shout out the audience. We did an episode on that. And, AI is something I use, but for more like secular things. So it doesn't have as much of this like mystique to me, but I'm really interested because I know a lot of very spiritual people, my friend David included, who really find it so fascinating and so useful. So tell us, how did you even start in that kind of a thing of your creative technologist work?
Yeah, great question. So I actually feel like a lot of my life, you might say like my whole life was based around preparing for this like AI revolution that we're experiencing now. So I've been like kind of aware. A lot of people have known it's been coming even from like the 60s or the 70s. But so I like studied computer science, learning about how computers work, but then also focusing a lot on creativity. And like researching like what are the things that make humans unique that a computer could not replicate. So like creativity is one of those. So I kind of optimized my life around being as creative as possible. So now that AI is here, I'm able to have ideas, a lot of them, and then the AI can kind of take it from there.
Did you have like one of those childhoods where like you were like figuring out computers and like getting all the best games on your computer like real young? I don't know if that's true for you. I have a friend that was like, and now he fucking runs Malwarebytes.
No, not really actually. I played computer games.
Yeah.
And I
was a big Warcraft 3 guy.
Nice.
Yeah, everything fucking slabs.
I used AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I was on there all the time, and I played RuneScape, and I played a game called Habbo Hotel.
I know Habbo Hotel.
Oh, you do, yeah.
I know RuneScape. Trash. All about World of Warcraft. Sorry.
It's okay.
But getting back to it, what was your... Well, firstly, I think it was really interesting how you brought up that people have been kind of seeing this coming. And, I'm a fan of sci-fi literature. And, of course, you think of so many different very formative, pieces of media and novels and stuff that saw this happening. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of doomsday crying about it, which maybe we should talk about later. I mean, we can't do AI without at least touching that surface. I mean, I'm not particularly afraid of it, but either way, it was interesting that you feel like you saw it coming or like you felt it coming. Mm-hmm. And that gives me a sense of, I wonder how many people's like soul, their karma, they're a soul who's well suited to use this new physical manifestation, Do you feel like that's part of like the karma of your lifetime?
That's a great question. And yeah, I actually have, one of my purposes in life is to use AI to create as much good karma as I can.
And honestly, on that, I want to just call out one of the reasons why I love you. So, one of the things that David and I do is, and Shruti, is we often go on to this really awesome event on Wednesdays at Altar, which is just this awesome women's center. At night, they open it up to the boys, and we do this ecstatic dance, and we talked about that with Luke. And when I do that stuff, and I think I spoke about it last episode, sometimes it kind of fucks me up, just the amount that comes out. And I was fucking dying like 2 weeks ago, and excused myself to sit on the couch, and kind of silently I was like praying, like, someone please help me. And you came up to me, and you guided me through these steps, and they're steps I'm familiar with. But yeah, you really did them so well, and it one helped, and then simultaneously like uncorked me even more.
Oh, really?
But yeah, in a good way. In a good way.
Okay.
I was so grateful for you. And as I understand it, that's something that, did you come up with that with AI, or did you come with that with your own? Because you made a program, Rain, I think you call it.
Yeah. So I can't take credit for the process itself. It's based, well, it's like popularized by someone named Tara Brach, who's like a meditation teacher. So she has these meditations where she leads through the RAIN process, which is recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. So it's a very powerful process that helps you to process. Like, it's a process where you process like feelings and emotions that may be stuck somewhere in your body. And I've adopted this as like a major part of the meditation coaching that I offer. And I created an AI on ChatGPT. It's on the GPT store, called Rain, a Practice of Radical Compassion. And so this is like a AI bot, and it walks you through the 4 steps one at a time. So it asks you some questions that help you to like recognize what you're experiencing. And then it'll give you, like, once you hit enter, it gives you the allow step. So it asks you like specific questions like, what is it like to allow the frustration to be there? Or like, what's it like to allow that pit in your stomach to just be there without trying to change or fix it? And then the next step is investigate. So then once you've shared a little bit about what it's like to allow it, then you can investigate that feeling further. And there's different ways you can do it. You can ask about like if there's like stories that are coming up, or even just like sitting with the feeling and just like letting anything come up, and just kind of like listening to yourself, listen to your intuition. And then the nurture step is the 4th one. And that's when you are intentionally sending like compassion and love to those inner wounds that you've brought to the surface.
I mean, it was just so helpful, and it's kind of cool, like how you codified that into ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So, but tell me more, because just going back to what we were talking about right before that, how do you feel like you and it kind of made me think like probably a number of souls were like, well suited as a soul, as an entity of intelligence and light, to bring this technology forward and use it for a number of purposes, because I think spirituality is a very novel way of looking at it. It can be used obviously for a plethora of things. It's just I'll give you my thoughts on what AI is a little later, but you probably know better than me.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, the company that I've set up is called Exponential Enlightenment. So that's all about combining the ancient wisdom with the modern technology. So I create tools and also live experiences for people. I've done workshops and also one-on-one sessions. And also another part of Exponential Enlightenment is this idea that like as more of us like raise our consciousness, we can uplift each other in a way that we all start growing a lot faster. And AI plays a big part in that, in its ability to help you to communicate complex things to people. And like one of the beautiful things about it is as I'm like using this rain tool to process like my feelings. Like I've been going through a breakup recently, which brought up like a lot of like feelings of like jealousy and betrayal. And so I was able to use this brain tool in order to process my emotions and then convert it into wisdom. So the wisdom is coming from me, but then also the AI is providing its own wisdom in a like really interesting way. And then once that is created, then it can be shared with others. So as you're going through this like healing process, you're creating artifacts and articles and like guided meditations and lists of wise statements and things like that that you can then share with other people as we all grow as a collective.
Well, I think it's interesting too because I mean, if you really think about it, and granted, I am not, the person who like totally is an expert on like artificial intelligence and like how that aspect of technology works, like at the way it actually works. Yet, a lot of what I understand of like the wisdom you said that it brings to the table, it's kind of really like the collective wisdom of mankind because it more synthesizes than creates, right?
Hmm. It's a good question. I think it does create and not synthesize. It is generating. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And so what it does is it takes in an input and then transforms it and generates an output. So the things that it's creating are like new. It's not like it's like giving you copyrighted content. It's like literally like speaking like as if you were like just journaling off of your mind, but then it's like journaling from a place that has access to all of the information humanity has ever created and put online. And so I kind of think about it kind of like the stars in the universe. And then the AI is able to like make connections between these different stars. And depending on what AI you're using, it's like you're setting up a telescope on like a certain constellation. And so you can see how these things come together in unique ways. And I do think it's like creating it. I wouldn't say it's synthesizing it.
Well, a thought I had when you said it that way, I mean, a really common, like, modern spiritual belief, and I'm sure you've heard this or maybe even subscribed to the belief, is that, in divinity, like, everything already exists. Like, no one's having original thoughts. Like, the thoughts exist. Like, this is for people who are not familiar, there's a belief that thought just exists of its own, and human souls more like just sort of pick it or receive one from divinity. The guy I talk about a lot is David Hawkins, and that's what he says. It says the only thing that can create anything is divinity at like a high level. We just more work with it. And in that way, that's kind of an interesting take, in that perhaps this is kind of something similar. So I want to just get to brass tacks. Like, what do you think that, artificial intelligence in all of its forms, what does it have to offer to, the spiritually seeking people of today?
Yeah, what does it have to offer to the spiritual seeking people of today? So when it comes to like my approach in exponential enlightenment, there's 5 pillars, which are mindfulness, authentic expression, personalized guidance, community connection, and economic opportunity. And I do believe that AI can help people with all 5 of those pillars slash steps. And one thing that I've thought about before is that when the Buddha was alive, he had like his talks that he gave to like masses of people, but then he also worked a lot one-on-one with people where he would listen to their stories first and then give like personalized guidance that would integrate some of the teachings but always make it accessible to each individual. And so AI can do that part where it can take the profound wisdom and then make it accessible to anybody, and connect it to your like lived experience.
I had a funny thought when you were saying that, because like you think about like just Like, how far, like, your social media algorithm has come to, like, it knows the things that you like.
Yeah.
And that's more of like a silly thought, like the comparison, but I do see your point. If you want to hear something crazy that it's, I don't think it's released yet, but last year I was at a place called the Parliament of World Religions. It's a really big spiritual conference. It happened to be in Chicago. I had a booth for the School of Metaphysics, and right next to us was a booth that was promoting two things. One, they were trying to make the first like museum of Jesus Christ, because apparently there's no museum specifically dedicated to Jesus, like in Capernaum. Doubt that's really going anywhere with current state of everything going on over there. But the other thing they were doing was they were making a chat bot based on Jesus. Mm-hmm. And it was largely based off of his voice. And I'm not sure if you've ever heard of like Urantia.
No.
It's this book that is supposedly like channeled from Christ. And I haven't read it, but I know a lot of people in like circles I know they really felt a connection to it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, some people did test it. Like I unfortunately was not one of them. But yeah, it was like, yeah, like I'm talking to Jesus. Like, and they thought it was pretty insightful. I had not thought of it as like its capacities for like personalization,
Yeah.
Because especially like as it'll learn about me over time, like my like the chat GPT I got installed on my computer. Mm-hmm. So would you say that's like the hot like would you say like that's the most powerful thing it has to offer, or no?
The most powerful thing it has to offer. Let me first start by saying this. One of the first tools that I built was called Boodi AI, BOODI.ai. And it's like a play on words on like Booty, like BUDDHI, which is like yoga of the intellect.
Yeah.
It's about like liberating yourself from suffering through intellectual understanding. And so what I did with this tool was it just has like a little input box, and then it asks you to write down what's been causing you stress. And then based on what you share, like sometimes people will say like trouble at work, or maybe it's like a conflict with their wife or something like that. And then what it does is it takes what you share and then applies it directly to the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. So it introduces people to the Four Noble Truths, but done so in a way that's specifically addressing the issue that they're currently facing. So you can like immediately see the path to liberation from suffering and start taking the steps just from like one interaction.
So it kind of like one thing it has to offer is it takes like spiritual teachings and concepts and makes it a little more accessible to people, is what you're saying. Because like, yeah, I mean, you could like go to like a Buddhist temple if you have one in the area, and if the monks there or the teachers there are any good, and they could try to teach you, or you could try to like. I remember when I was like in my early 20s, man, I just found this stuff out. I was on Wikipedia like all the time, like just going through like Buddhist article to Buddhist article and just like figuring shit out. So you could do that. I don't recommend it unless you're like a weirdo like me.
Anything sticks out that you remember from that Wikipedia dive?
That enlightenment was a progressive state of realizations, because I originally thought that enlightenment was just like, they Buddha says like you cross the river. I was like, okay, and then you just get there. And I always had this feeling like, no, it's got to be just like normal consciousness, where it's like evolving. Mm-hmm. And then unsurprisingly, the more you look in, the yanas, the difference between like the enlightened Buddha and his arahats and like the lesser, I forget what, like attainees. That in Buddhist cosmology is just like wild.
Stream enterers.
Yeah. So that was all very interesting. Also the different yanas, like the states of progressive awareness. And yeah, it just occurs to me now that that's often how I use ChatGPT. When I use ChatGPT, I say, which is the main AI tool that I use, I say, hey, like right now I'm looking to go to grad school. I'm like, hey, give me a list of like grad schools that like I'm interested in this. Or it's like, hey, give me a list of like researchers who are working on this topic.
Yeah.
So you could say, hey, give me a list of like spiritual teachings that have to relate to this.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you can do your own research from there or just see what the tool generates.
Yeah, that's true. And you can also say like what what are good movies to watch with an ecstatic dance community during challenging times or something like that. That's
Yeah.
kind of like what I asked for like yesterday, and I gave like a list of like 10 movies, and we ended up watching one of them. So you can ask like very specific questions about where you are, and that is also helpful with spirituality because people will face different challenges or different doubts. Like, I mean, it's like such a broad thing, right? And it can encapsulate your mental health or like your emotional state. Like spirituality can tie into your relationships, like with your family members or friends. So people face a bunch of different challenges, and the AI is able to give you like exactly like what you need based on what you've expressed. So that's why like the first two steps are mindfulness and authentic expression. Because if you're able to be mindful of what you're experiencing and then like authentically express it, then you can get that personalized guidance, either from a human or from the AI.
Yeah, and I do want to go into a little different topic in a second. Oh gosh, what the fuck was I shouldn't cuss that much. Um, it's like well, it's gone.
People will often
I remember
give
now, but
Bible verses when people are struggling with something specific.
I kind of do that sometimes.
Yeah,
That or just shit on my roommate because he's Christian and likes to say awful things, and I love him to death. He's just a troll. He's a beautiful guy. I love you, Enrique.
yeah. So like people will give Bible verses for when people say they're facing something specific. So this you can kind of think of this kind of like that, but it has access to everything, and it can also create new information. So like for example, if you're able to express like, "Oh, I'm really struggling right now because my inner wounded child like is I have an inner wounded child from issues with my father, and now I'm experiencing a fear of rejection." And then it can give like a specific like statement that kind of like transforms your consciousness from like where it is right now to where you want it to be.
It can really give a whole host of resources. In my own work at the School of Metaphysics, you do these little volunteer spiritual teachings, and you might lead a group for a time through the program. And one of the things I really realized is that, I always try to educate the students like really early on that like, hey, you start doing spiritual work, eventually you're going to have a bad time because something's going to come up to be healing. And that's not an if, that's a when, because that's the effect of what you're doing. And it's a part of the process. And what I noticed is that there are generally like almost like expected roadblocks, like, ones that are well known, that, your teacher had the same problem and his teacher had the same problem. And some, monk or yogi like 2,000 years ago, like wrote a whole manual about.
Mm-hmm.
And without the resource, without the teacher, it's really difficult to deal with these things.
Mm-hmm.
But often, even with something that's kind of like a platitude, like just like, oh yeah, like this is like, the go-to statement,
Mm-hmm.
it can be extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I could see that as another use. But with that in mind, I want to switch gears a little bit to like the limitations of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying earlier about how it lacks creativity, which is more of a human, a factor of human consciousness. Were you saying something like that?
I did say that as a reason that I developed my creativity because it makes humans uniquely human. Creativity does.
What do you think is the difference between like the creativity of, human beings, men and women, versus like the creativity of this technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a different type of creativity, and the AI can do some things much better than humans can in terms of creativity. So there's a category of creativity called mechanical creativity. So this is something that has existed before AI, and the idea is like you have this process that you follow in order to make creativity happen. So like one example is the scamper technique, which stands for substitute, combine, and other letters, and it's like things that you could do. Like you take the example of a pencil, and it's like, okay, substitute the eraser for a bell, and combine the pencil with a pen. It's just like ways of like being creative in different ways.
It's a process. I mean,
Yeah.
every acronym, we love it.
Yeah, exactly. And AIs can do mechanical creativity really, really well. Because if you have the framework or the process, it can just apply whatever you put in there. So, like one place that I use this is in creating inspiring art pieces. And so I have this chat GPT that I created called Blue Pizza Cat. And it's based around this idea where you ask someone their favorite color, their favorite animal, and their favorite food, and then it outputs a pixel art version of that color animal eating that food. But then I've like continued the conversation for a really long time, and then I also told the AI to write its own mechanical creativity algorithm such that I give it a quote like "trust yourself," and then it breaks down that quote into the different dimensions of trusting yourself, and then it combines them into like to create these metaphorical images. So I'm able to create like 4 very unique images, all at the same time. So like a non-AI artist would have to like think of the idea and then also draw it themselves. And so this is doing both of those pieces where like I give it the seed and then it can run the algorithm and then output something. And it can output like a lot of it, and I can just say like, "Give me more," and then it just does it again, gives me 4 more.
Yeah, I'll share my perspective on it. I really like how you said like the mechanical. Although I also am just sitting over here feeling like kind of a Luddite because like the last time I really tried to use AI to like draw something, I had a bone to pick with it because I wanted it to give me a picture of a flamingo with really thick thighs.
Yeah.
And we tried for like an hour and it couldn't do it, so I paid my friend. But I'm really inspired because like that's a very
And it's gotten a lot better.
yeah. Granted, this was also like right at the beginning. I was on a car trip, but
Yeah.
I was discussing with my roommate the other day, like what even is AI? Because he's like he's on the fence about it. He's basically a poet. And so he's kind of old school, and whenever we write together, he's like got like a pen and paper. But I was always thinking like AI is a tool that it does linear thinking, and it does it faster and better than you probably. I mean, there's probably some geniuses who like, hey, ChatGPT even 5 or 7 or 10 when they're not gonna hold up to these, probably like Stanford PhDs like doing math faster than like grad students with a calculator. But for your average Joe, like, or Jane, it thinks for you faster. Yet, at the same time, I think what it doesn't have is humans have like a non-linear thinking, and that's where you get to like the touch of the subconscious mind, the touch of the soul, like where it has this like capacity for like just genius and just like sort of this like really creative beauty, like these things that don't really make sense. They're more like energetic or like feeling based, and they just come out, And I do wonder, I don't know if a machine will ever get that. Yet, if you agree on that or not, I mean, why should a machine even do that when we have people to do that and we can have the machines to think fast? But I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, so I wouldn't. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I wouldn't necessarily say AI is just linear thinking. It does a lot of thinking, and it can do abstract thinking. It can combine different ideas in unexpected ways, in ways that you wouldn't imagine. So, like, one of the things that I got a lot of value from AI on was researching how quantum physics can connect to Vipassana meditation. And so it's able to take these two most people would think they're like very different topics. One of them is like sitting and meditating. The other one's like doing research in a lab. But then like thinking about and having the AI like find connections between these two things that you wouldn't normally find. So that's an interesting use of AI. And it comes to why do these things, and then you were talking about like creativity, and like the AI keeps getting better at different types of creativity. So like 3 months ago they launched Suno, which lets you make music with AI.
Yeah,
So I've
I
been
heard
using
one of your
that a lot.
songs.
Yeah.
I really liked it. Let me cook, or was it Let me cook for you? Cook for you, I think.
Cook
it's
for
called.
you,
Let me
yeah.
cook. That's not
So
a
Cook for
meme.
You, and then I have a song from my like first album in 2020 called I Cook for You. So then I was able to like take the same, and it was like so interesting because I like typed in like what the chorus was from my human song, and then the way the vocals performed it, it was like so similar to like how I actually did it, and it like really blew my mind. So the way that AI makes music, I feel like is like very creative. It's not like derivative at all. Like people will say like, oh, it's just like stealing from other artists, but it's like it's totally different. Like they're very original songs. It can make like
I was surprised at the quality of
Yeah.
that song, "Cook for You."
Yeah, and then also then there's this new tool that I'm using called Notebook LM, and this is a tool made by Google, and this is what I use to create the podcast that I shared with you.
Yeah.
So the way that this one works is you give it resources like a document. So for example, I created a document called 8 Tokens to Eradicate Suffering. And then you give the document to Notebook LM, and then it has 2 AI agents have a conversation about the document that you share it. And then they're bringing in like their own perspectives somehow and like discussing the document and saying like, oh, this one really stood out to me because like, and then it like gives like a human sounding reason. And so that like blew my mind recently. That was my most
Yeah, it
recent
was
mind
actually
blown.
entertaining and informative to listen to. I liked how it like went through all 8 of them, of which I really liked the first one, which it had because it did actually have wound up being like a kind of unique perspective on like compassionate observation, which was like a word I'd never heard before. I was familiar with the concepts, yet that one actually helped on something I was dealing with yesterday. And I liked how it went through like the whole ideas like twice, and it was very organic. But just for the sake of time, I do want to switch. And I want to ask because it's like, well, then I mean, as someone who uses the technology a lot and is maybe even soul level like suited towards it, what is the limitation of it, if you can see any?
So the limitation on it, I would say, is humans' ability to take in information is limited by time, and people are consuming things every day, and AI can create a lot of new things, but then you still have the limitation of like what is getting communicated to each person, and people have control over that. And with AI, people have more control over the information that they take in. And a paradigm shift in AI is that previously you would like go on Google and you would like type in your query and then it would bring you things that already existed. But like now with AI, you type in your query and it creates something brand new. So there used to be like a lot of information on the internet that existed, but now it's like each person has infinite information like coming out of their fingertips, and you just imagine something and then it becomes created. So there's this concept called the singularity, which is one way to define the singularity is like having zero time between wanting something and having it. And so AI is like getting us a lot closer to that, where it's like almost magical. Like you just type in art about
Yeah, I know
trust
what you
yourself,
mean.
and then boom, it's there. So there is a limitation to like what each person can do with their time while they're here.
So your limitations, as you see it, is more like on the human nature aspect of things. Like we can't or don't yet know like how to fully utilize this next extension of our minds.
Yes, and I would also add to that, like, artists, for example, they paint pictures, and then like most people, like hardly anyone sees their art or buys their art, and like AI doesn't solve that at all. So like as a creator, as an artist, you can create lots of images, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna be a successful artist if you still aren't able to like deliver the experience to real people who, you know, you're competing with like eating food and sleeping and watching TV as an artist trying to reach your
Yeah.
fans.
Just time? How are we doing?
Whenever you want to end.
So I want to do just, well, yeah, I kind of feel like what I'm interested to see, because I love everything you said, although I'm not fully sold on, because I won't doubt like that it has the ability to be creative. Like I said, I've heard the song, I listened to the podcast, and yeah, they were good.
It's still me doing it though.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of, okay, that's actually, I'm glad you said that, because I don't want to just like say something to like shit on you, which I don't think I was about to. I'm a little super deprived. I swear to God. That's not, anyway, we're doing great. What I was going to say was that I think from my limited understanding, you know, AI is really just the next level in this mechanical thinking. And I'm not saying that isn't like nonlinear. Yet when I say nonlinear, I should say I'm borrowing how Hawkins talks about it. He says that word. What I mean is that, like, you know, AI seems to operate at a level of high intellectual capacity in the physical realm. I don't know if it will ever be able to do what I think a human being does, which is, you know, we're not totally physical beings, you know, like, you know, Jesus said, have I not said ye are gods? And we have this connection to that divinity. But like you just said, it's like, well, the machine isn't separate from that. One of those beings, I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really think is probably one of the biggest benefits of it, is it allows us to kind of become a little more unleashed. You know, there's limitations to what my mind can do in the physical universe, because I got this great brain. You know, it's, you go down to the center, it's basically the same as a lizard, you know, and you go out to the top and it's got some problems. It's really great. You know, I can't think as fast as my computer. I don't need to think as fast as my computer.
Mm-hmm.
My computer doesn't need to access divine wisdom. I can access divine wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you could say it's like this match made in heaven.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of thoughts came to me while you were talking. One of them is like this idea of AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is this idea that eventually AI will get to the point where it like is a human. But I like to think about like AGI as like AI plus a human, where like it makes each individual able to do like pretty much anything. If you want to do something, you can get the guidance you need. You can get the support that you need. Another thing that came
I just
to
want
mind.
to top in real quick, because
yeah,
I have an interesting thought. I've always wondered if one AI gets far enough, like if a human soul just hop into that as like a body. Like, I mean, it's just a body. It can host our non-physical consciousness. But I just wanted to share that idea.
That's my next rebirth. I'm calling it now.
Hell, I could see a number of people, you know.
Yeah, and then another way I think about AI. So you were talking about like linear thinking, and like, okay, so like I thought about it in this sequence where if you think about like a podcast or like listening to audio, you're limited by the speed that you can actually hear things and comprehend it. Whereas if you're reading something, you can read probably faster than you could hear the words spoken. So that's like a faster form of communication. But then AI is even like quantum communication or like exponential communication, where you can actually explore 30 different ways of saying what you want to say and then be like, yes, this is the best one. I'm going to say this. So like you can like, it like expands your ability to communicate greatly. It expands your consciousness. You have access to lots of different things you could say, you could communicate, which has its pros and cons. Like it can become overwhelming, but also as people read through like different examples, And like something called like scripting has been around for a while, where like you give yourself new scripts to use in specific situations. So like AI can help you like find new ways of saying things that you want to say. Or if you're like struggling with like expressing your needs to your parents, you can be like, hey AI, like why are they not getting this when I say this? And then the AI can be like, well, you see, your parents, they want you to be safe, so if you said it this way, then it looks like you're on the same team. So it can help with like a lot of like interpersonal communication related issues. And yes, and I'll pause there, but there was one more thing, but it's going to come back to me soon.
If it does, we'll start wrapping up. I mean, I really feel like that what you just delivered was like the opus of the question, at least to me. Like that really answers, it's just, and it does beg the question, which might have to be for another time, of the connection of the human element, because obviously we don't want to totally, I don't know if we want to let this thing replace human interaction. I'm not suggesting that you said that. I don't want people to like the artists where they're just outsourcing spiritual teachings and stuff to the AI, because then I'm out of a volunteer job. But jokes aside, to wrap up tonight, what I would love, just share briefly, if you could, a couple AI tools that maybe people don't know about, and then plug your shit, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I love how Nils always snickers when I say that. Alexander too.
Yeah, plug your shit, dude.
I don't even know who I probably stole that from originally. I think somebody else says that. Maybe it's Mr. Rogan, but hey, Joe, I would come on that show like in a second.
I really wish I said I hesitated to say this thing earlier because I was like, if I say this, they're gonna cut it like right when I say this, and there's more things I want to talk about because it was so good. But now it's not coming to me anymore. But that's okay. What was the question that you asked actually? Oh, tools that I use.
Yeah, just some tools people might not know about, and then plug your stuff.
Yeah, they might not know about. So like with ChatGPT, if you have a premium subscription, you get access to the GPT store, which is it's like the Apple App Store. There's a ton of stuff in there, and you can find mine in there. One of them is called Rain, a practice of radical compassion, which we talked about earlier. The Blue Pizza Cat AI art generator, that's a really good one. And I have a really fun one in there people might like called Full Moon Fusion Avatar Creator. So I made this for my Full Moon Fusion workshops that were happening last year. And the idea behind this GPT is it's almost like what's that tabletop game? Dungeons and Dragons character creator.
Oh,
but
sick. Yeah, I'm a big D&D guy.
Nice. But this asks you questions about yourself and like more spiritual questions, and then it gives you this big breakdown of like your Full Moon Fusion avatar. So I made like a bunch of those, and it's super fun and really interesting, and you get to see kind of like an enlightened version of like whatever you type in.
Sounds like a much nicer version of like what Rick and Beth did on that. Not Rick, what Beth and Jerry did on that one episode of Rick and Morty where they were getting marriage counseling. Like personified their problems.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. This sounds like a much nicer version of that.
Yeah, it is like that. Yeah, exactly. Other tools that I use besides ChatGPT, one of them is called Microsoft Designer. So this one is a nice tool. You can generate images, and it's like unlimited free. So ChatGPT has limits on generating images. Microsoft Designer, unlimited image creation. A new one that I discovered, which like blew my mind, is called gptengineer.app. And then this one is like you type in a box what you want to, like a product idea, and then it writes all the code for the front end, including like the CSS, the HTML, the JavaScript. It's in React, and then it gives you all the code, and you can just like sync it with GitHub, and then just like start iterating on it. And then now they're connecting it with like a backend, I think in like Firebase maybe or Subbase. So you'll be able to like build an entire web app with just talking to AI. So that one is amazing. We mentioned Notebook LM. So Notebook LM, you can put in documents in there, and it creates like an audio podcast. So I've created a few of those. I've been putting them on my new YouTube channel called Exponential Enlightenment.
We'll be tagged later.
And then so that's going to be connected to a platform called NAS.io, NAS.io. And then what's going to go on that platform is like the documents themselves. And that lets you do like a paid community. So the Exponential Enlightenment is going to have a paid community on NAS.io. You can watch the videos on the YouTube channel for free, but then if you want to see the source documents, then you can either purchase them from the website or subscribe there for people that want to go deeper into the source documents.
And briefly, anything else that you want to just put out there for how people could reach you or offer you? We'll wrap up from there.
Yeah, so I have a lot of music out, and I want more people to listen to my music. And you can search my name, David Prorok, David Prorok. One of my albums is called Caveman Shaking in a Dream. That one's quite good. I was just listening to it the other day. So yeah, stream my music and share it with your friends. It's good dance music. You can follow me on Instagram, david.prorok. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, David Prorok, the Exponential Enlightenment YouTube channel. I have a Facebook group called Exponential Enlightenment that you can join as well, where I share some enlightening information each day. And every 2 weeks on Wednesdays, I do Exponential Meditation Coaching Circle, where at the beginning of the session, I introduce an AI tool, and then we go into breakout rooms so people can try it on each other, where you're developing personal growth through AI and meditation. And then I also work with people one-on-one, so we can do a meditation coaching session. I'm open to long-term clients as well. And in particular, I have a session that I'm really excited to offer, and it's called Transforming Trauma into Music. So it uses the RAIN AI to help you process a traumatic event from your life with difficult feelings. And you might have wisdom that you've already developed, but you can also develop more wisdom. And then for the second half of the session, we use the Suno AI app to take what you shared, the AI puts it into the form of a song, and then we create some songs for you that can tell the story of your transformation. And I'm also working with elderly people who want to share their legacy with their kids and grandkids. So I interview them and then transform their stories into AI songs that they can share and have their legacy live on. So those are some of the things that I offer.
Oh yeah, those last two are really cool. I didn't know. I think, wow. Well, you heard it here. So David, thank you so much for coming on the show. See you next time.
Is this on? All right, good. Yes, thank you.
What were we looking at time wise?
50 minutes.
50 minutes? Okay.
That's good.
Hey, well, good stuff, man.
That was better than the first time, honestly.
Dude, I mean, it was the thing.